Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michael. I'm going to be your host for this afternoon session. So today we're looking at one of what we term our quick learn sessions, so slightly shorter than normal for the sessions that we run for Sage 50 accounts. So we're looking at the basics of entering bank payments and receipts in the software today. So we'll be running through that, explaining the various options that you have, not just on the screen, but also things like how you go about grouping transactions, making sure that they don't group if you prefer that. And obviously in that position, sometimes where maybe you just want that choice when at the point of entering the transactions. So we'll be explaining all of that as well. Now, this being a quick learn, we will be starting in around about 3 minutes. So just giving everyone a chance to get logged in and join us. Now, just while we're waiting to get started, what I'll quickly do is, for those of you that are here already, I'll quickly run you through a little bit of housekeeping. So you don't need a microphone for our webinars. If you do have one and you enable it, you'll find you're muted automatically. You can't unmute yourself during the session today. So any questions that you do have during the session, and do keep them coming, do engage with me during the session. I will try my best I'll try my best to sort of pick them up as we're running through the session today. But if there's any outstanding, I'll pick those up at the end, maybe run a few extra demos here and there as well. Should be plenty of time for that, with this being a quick learn session. So remember, just click the little speech bubble. It'll give you access to that box in the bottom corner. Type in your question. Remember to click send, otherwise I won't see them. And then we'll, as I say, we'll try and pick them up as you do that. Now, I have actually included a couple of versions of the handout for today's session. I would encourage you to download that during the session. It gives you the opportunity, it includes the links to the relevant Help Centre articles and a couple of other options as well that we'll be covering a little bit later on in the session. Mentions about the alternatives to manual data entry. So there's a couple of links to the some videos that we have on those alternatives. So we'll not be going in depth into those today. Obviously, we'll be recording this session. A link to the recording will be included on your follow-up email. You'll receive that around about an hour after you finish. And that that email will also include links so that you can register for our upcoming webinars, but also so you can access our recordings as well. Do have a good look through the registration page. There's loads of sessions on there. This month we're currently in the middle of running our data management badge. We'll be repeating that session. So if you are looking to earn more digital badges, we will be repeating those sessions throughout September. In September, we're going to be introducing our report designer badge as well. You may have seen that currently advertised when you're going into your software. So do check those out as well. So whether you want to learn more about just, I suppose, reporting in general, how you can go about amending your layout, so things like adding logos, bits of text, alignment, that type of thing, all the way through to more complex areas such as criteria and groups and sections on reports. So do check those out as well. So that will be included on the link for so you can get yourself registered. So watch out for your follow-up email. It will be with you around about an hour after we finish today. Right, okay, so just gone 5 past, so we're ready to get started. So let's have a look at what we're going to be covering in the session this afternoon for payments and receipts. So this being a quick learn, it's nearly all demo. I'm going to give you a brief introduction to payments and receipts. We'll run through a demonstration. I do, where they are applicable, like to mention alternatives. Sometimes there's more than one way. In this case, there's a number of ways to achieve the same result. So I want to quickly mention those. On the handout, as I mentioned, I have included links where you can watch videos on those alternatives as well. Just at the end, I'll explain more about the additional support that is available to you. And then if there is anything outstanding or you have any of those last minute questions, get them submitted and I'll try and pick those up as well. But do try and engage with me during the session. Keep those questions coming. Anything you're not sure about, just pop it in there. Right, so as a brief introduction to entering bank payments and receipts, you've got the two options available within the bank accounts area. And you would use these where you want to record expenses or income when there is no sort of invoice involved. So you probably think of these as like, you're buying petrol. You probably wouldn't set the petrol station up as a supplier. You're not going to be invoiced. It's just a straightforward bank payment. And there'll be instances for those types of transactions, both money going out and coming in. So you would use these options when there's no invoice involved, and obviously linking the transaction to a customer or supplier account is just not required. It's a very quick way of recording money in and money out. You can easily access these options as shown on the screenshot there. Just by going into bank accounts, you've got the two options on your toolbar. If you don't have them there, it's going to be for one of two reasons. One is either access levels, so your username doesn't have access to these options. Or alternative, maybe you've hidden them. You've right-clicked on your toolbar at some point, and when you do that, it will give you a list of the options along the top, and you've just maybe just switched the options off thinking you didn't need those. Good option for some of the other options, actually, if you don't use them. So if there's any areas in there that you think, well, I just don't use that option, and this runs throughout the software, you can right-click your toolbar when you're in a specific ledger. It'll list all of the options on that toolbar, and you can show or hide the options. So it's a good way of sort of almost like having a clear out of options that you don't use, just hiding them in the background. So nice and easy to access. We'll obviously be running through those in the session in just a moment. Now you can enter transactions either individually or as a batch. So if you've got a number of bank payments to enter, you don't have to enter one and save it, enter the next one, save it. You can just enter them all on the same screen and against the various different bank accounts you have. But obviously bank payments, you're going to enter all your payments on that one screen. You can't enter a mixture of payments and receipts on the same screen. And one of the important things that catches people out, and it's a really good thing to have a good understanding of, is transaction grouping. So one of those questions we get asked about regularly when you enter transactions in a batch, why have they grouped together? Or I do want them grouped, or I don't want them grouped. How do I go about doing that? So I'm going to explain a little bit about that in today's demonstration as well. I'll cover the settings available for that one as well. Now I've marked that last option as there being a recorded webinar available, so do check that out as well if you want more of an in-depth explanation of that option. Again, remember the links to our recordings page will be included in your follow-up email. Anyway, let's get stuck into a bit of a demonstration. So I'll share my screen and we'll get working in Sage50 accounts. Now, if I just quickly access bank accounts, and we'll quickly run through the bank payment and the bank receipt windows. They're pretty much the same, the options that they're going to be asking for. So in this case, and some of you may have slightly different columns to myself. I'll explain about that as we start working through. But you can see it's just you've got this grid, and obviously for each transaction that you're wanting to enter, you would need to populate the various boxes. The ones where it's a required field will have a little asterisk next to it on the title of that column. So it's just a case of completing the line. You can save it, move on to the next one, or you can just continue in that screen as well if you want to enter multiple items at the same time. Now, if I just close out of that for a second before we start entering transactions and we access the bank receipt window, and you'll see it looks pretty much the same. I think sometimes because of that, the odd occasion you may find people where you enter it as a receipt rather than a payment, or vice versa. So if you know how to do one, you'll know how to do the other. So what I want to do, because I think it's generally a lot more common, we'll concentrate on bank payments today. Now, when we access the bank payment window, so we got these columns, so I'm going to run through them. I'll explain what you do in each one, also who will have what available to them as well. So the first column is your bank column. So basically you would choose the bank account that you want to make the payment from. Now the 1200, the reason it's picked up that first of all is just I've got that one that one selected. If I highlight that one instead and I go into the bank payment option, you should find it picks it up by default. But you can change it. You can enter payments against different bank accounts as we go through that screen if required. So nice and easy start, that one. Now the attach column is new to version 32. If you haven't installed version 32, it's one of the benefits. Some of the other benefits were to the Copilot option. But attach, something that's been in suppliers for a long time, a lot of requests about it, wanting to attach a document. So for instance, if you've bought, let's say you've bought some diesel for the van, for instance, you're entering that transaction into your account, but you've got a copy of the receipt. You might just click attach, and then it's just a case of you browsing, or if you've got easy access to them, you can just drag the files onto there. So let's say you've taken a photograph of the receipt, or you've got a scanned copy, it's saved to your PC. You would just click browse, and then it would just be a case of, let's see if I've got an image I can attach. Just be my luck, I've got no images today. Let's just choose a random one. Doesn't really matter what it is. Any image would do for the purpose of this demonstration. But let's say that's an image of a receipt. I can just then OK that. You can attach more than one if you want to. Most of the common formats are supported. So I click browse, you'll see the bottom here. There's a whole range of formats supported. I'll drag that over a bit so you can see that. So things like BMP, JPEGs, PNGs, so your common sort of image type files. Obviously other files as well, documents, PDF is on there, and also things like Excel files as well. So you've got that available on version 32 just about throughout the software now. So let's just choose that one. And then you would just OK that. What it means is if you need to, you've got reference to that. So let's say you're looking through the activity of a particular account and you think, what's the detail of that one again? It means that you don't have to go and digging through your filing system, or and you've mixed up all your receipts. It means that you can just click the little icon that's going to be next to the transaction when you're looking at the activity, and it will bring up and display that image for you. Right, next you've got the date. Obviously it's going to pick up today's date. If yours is actually not picking up today's date, it probably just means that you haven't actually closed the software down. So every time you open Sage 50 accounts, it'll pick up your PC date. So just if yours is lagging behind, that's why. So you can obviously change it if needed, or if you close your software and reopen it, it'll pick up the right date for you. Next, you've got the reference. So what do you use for the reference? Now, with it probably being a bank payment or a receipt, you probably don't have that. But it's the kind of thing you might get a bunch of receipts from expenses you've incurred, and you might write something on there. So for instance, you might write on the receipt 2508, just to indicate the year and the month, and then you might have something like it's number 45. So you might write that on the receipt just so you've got that cross-reference if needed. Extra reference, pretty much the same. The reference and extra reference, you've got up to 30 characters for those, so quite a bit of scope to put some detail in there as well if needed. Obviously, reference, when you're entering other transactions in the software, it's going to be things like invoice numbers or credit note numbers. But when it's a payment or receipt, it's probably something like you don't really have from the document itself. So it's a case of you probably creating one. If at all, you might not even want to do that. So reference, extra reference, up to you what you put in there. Nominal code. So what does the expense relate to in this case? Now it's no different from an invoice. When you're entering an invoice, you'll probably use one of your sales nominal codes. So for an expense, it's going to be whatever you want to code that to. So if it's an overhead, for instance, that's going to be roughly in your 7,000 range. But it could be potentially against any nominal code. So let's just say it's a random traveling expense. So we'll choose the appropriate nominal code. Department, if you use departments, you can choose from the drop-down. Obviously, some of these fields will pick up a default, and I'll touch on those in just a moment as well. So nominal code, department, obviously it's picked one up there. You can click on the drop-down and change it if required. The fund option, you'll only have that one if you have enabled the charities option or the not-for-profit options within Sage 50. So if you've got funds set up, just be a case of you recording the transaction against the relevant fund, so choosing it from the drop-down. Similar for the project reference and the cost code. So you'll only have these two options if you run the professional level of the software and you're using the projects module. So if you've enabled that within your software. If you have, you would choose your project reference. So which project does this expense relate to? Let's just choose that one. And within that project, what's the breakdown? What does it refer to? So I'll just choose travel cost to try and keep it in keeping with the nominal code itself. Obviously, if you don't use these options, then you won't have those columns available to you. Details, I'll just put travel. Again, you can put as much detail as you want. You've got 60 characters there, so that's quite a bit of detail that you can key in. And then it's just a case of keying in the value. So we're going to say it's £100 net. Obviously, it's picked up T1. Again, you can change the tax code. If it's 0 rated, you would choose the appropriate tax code from the list. But it's picked up T1 by default. T1 being the standard rate of VAT in the UK, so it applies 20% tax. So £100 plus £20 tax, and then you've got that gross column just to see if you're adding it up. Nice and easy when it's £100 plus 20, but obviously other values might not be so easy. Now, if I just knew it was, let's say £120, and I didn't know the net VAT breakdown. Now, probably in your head, that's quite an easy one to work out, but let's say it wasn't. So we'll do £73.67. Not a one I can work out off the top of my head what the net and tax is of that, but you do have that calculate net option at the top. So maybe if you're entering your payments from the likes of a bank statement, for instance, you just know the value itself. You see, right, it relates to that. I know it's vatable. So I'll key in the value £73.67. I'll click calculate net, or I could just press F9 on the keyboard, and it'll work out the net and the tax breakdown for me based on the tax code that I've selected. So giving me, again, the gross still £73.67. Now, if I'm happy with that, I can just save it. And that's the transaction entered for me at that point. So I'll go and have a look at I'll pop into transactions. And if I go right to the bottom, I can see the detail of that transaction that I've just keyed in. Now, if I had made a mistake, I've got the ability to edit it. I can delete it. Maybe I've entered it twice, got interrupted when I was entering it. Come back, I've re-entered again, just made a mistake. So you can delete it if needed. I can also edit that as well. So maybe I've put it against a particular tax code or nominal code, or maybe I forgot to change the date. You've got that full flexibility. Just need to edit the transaction, change whatever it is you need to. If it's things like values, nominal codes, tax codes, you need to find the detail at the bottom here, and then you would just click edit. Then you've got the ability to change things like nominal codes and values, etc. at this stage. So I'm just going to close out of that. I'll not save any changes. So that's how easy it is to enter a bank payment. So that's just a single transaction. Now, if you were entering a transaction and you need to break it down, so we'll just go back into bank payment. I'll not go through all of the fields this time, just to make it a little bit quicker. But let's say we want to go through and enter a transaction which actually we need to apply a breakdown. So let's say a bit like let's say your home accounts, and you go to the supermarket, and let's say you were doing a home budget, for instance, and you think, well, actually, I need to break that down. I've made one payment at the supermarket, but actually the category of the expense is I've spent so much on food. You might have spent, getting the kids school uniforms while you're there. You might have got some stationery. So that type of thing, that's where your nominal codes come in, where you might need to break it down. You might also want to break it down by things like a tax code. So some of that expense may be at the standard rate, some of it may be zero rated or exempted VAT, and this is where you can break your transactions down. Now, for transactions to group together, which chances are you've probably come across, as I say, there is that detailed webinar recording if you are interested. But for transactions to group together, the bank account must be the same. So when we go down to multiple lines, got to have the same bank account, got to have the same date, and got to have the same reference. Doesn't matter about anything else. So it's these first three sort of data columns: bank, date, and reference. I'll show you what I mean by that. Now I'm just going to put 1, 2, 3 in as the reference. We'll do nominal code. Let's just choose 5,000. Doesn't really matter. And details, I'll just put services. Can't type very well today. So services. And I'll say that was £100. And I'm going to say T1 tax code. But let's say I tab down to the next line. You can either click or you just press your tab key and move you down to the next line. Let's say I want this transaction, actually it's for a higher value and I just need to show that breakdown. So what I can do is I can start keying in again. So I can either start keying in the information, or I could just press F6, or I could click the button at the top there. What F6 does is whatever's in the box above, it copies it down. So I just press F6, you'll see it copies 1200 down to the second line, takes me to the date field. I want that to be the same. I want the reference to be the same as well. So I'll just F6 on that one. Now nominal code, maybe I'm quite happy to leave it at 5,000. Obviously you can choose nominal codes as well. And this time I'm just going to say it was parts. So this time I'm going to say it was, let's say 150. Let's say I want to choose a different tax code this time because of the nature of whatever it is the expense relates to. We can do that. So we've now got two items, gives me a total at the bottom, 270. So you get your total net, your total tax, and your total gross. And as you can see, I'm on a third line. I can break the transaction down as much as I need to, whether that's between nominal code or tax code. Just depends what you want to do. You might want to split your transaction between, if you're a charity, you might want to split it between funds or projects, or the same project with different cost codes or different departments. So let's say you've got a sales department and accounts department. You incur an expense and actually you want to split it 50-50. So you can do that between different departments as well. So the choice is yours. But the key with the grouping is that if you enter them so they're consecutive on the list, and these three columns, the bank, the date, and the reference are the same, it'll group the transaction together. I'll show you what I mean by that in just a moment. Now I'm going to enter a third transaction. But this time I'll enter a different reference. However, I'll keep the rest of the information exactly the same. So I'll say that's parts as well. I'm just going to copy the value down as well. So actually lines 2 and 3 are exactly the same other than the reference. And I could continue on that screen as much as I want to. The only thing I would say if you're entering a batch is don't do too many. I have seen it in the past where people get interrupted and before you know it, they've closed out that PC or they've got to 50 transactions and for whatever reason, the power cut, they've just lost that information that they've sat there keying in. So don't do too many. Keep saving it if you can, if you don't need to group them. So anyway, I'm going to save that one. And I'll close out, pop into transactions, and you can see at the bottom here, we've got the three individual transactions. So that first element, the services, then I've got the parts, so the second element of that transaction with the reference 1, 2, 3, and then I've got that third element there as well, which was actually a separate transaction. Now, if I pop into the likes of bank accounts, and the reason you might use grouping might be a reporting thing, or it might be when you come to try and reconcile it. When I try to reconcile this bank account, recorded webinar on that one as well, you'll see if we scroll down to the bottom here, am I in the right? I'm in the wrong account there. So let's try that one again. Reconcile. Put them in numerical order. I knew something would catch me out going into that screen. And you can see we got the two transactions. So we got one transaction, which is essentially that's the grouped transaction for a total of 270. So that's what we'd see on our bank statement. We made one payment, but actually in our accounts, we've needed to break it down. That's why you've got that grouping aspect. And that other transaction with reference 124, again, it's showing individually. So if you want to find out more about that sort of the grouping or how to avoid grouping, simplest way to do it is just think first three columns. If they're the same and you enter them on the same screen, it'll group them. If you don't, it'll not. The other way to avoid grouping is to enter one line, save it, enter the next line, save it. So nice and easy with the grouping option. So it's the first three columns, and that works in other areas of the software as well. So if you're entering a batch supplier invoice, for instance, you'll have a similar sort of thing. Other thing to quickly mention as well is when you're in a bank account, you've got an account type. Now, there are three of these. If I just go into a blank record, so you can see the drop down. So a bank record can be flagged as a check account, a cash account, or a credit card account. Now, if you post a bank payment and the bank account you've selected is flagged as a check account, it'll post that with the transaction type BP, bank payment. If the bank account is flagged as a cash account, it'll flag that as a CP, a cash payment. And if it's flagged as a credit card account, it'll flag it as a VP, so V for Visa payment. So that's the only difference. The transactions, other than that, it'll make no difference. So don't worry if you've got you've set up a new sort of bank account on there and it's a cash account, but actually it's flagged as a check account. It'll make no difference to your workings in your software. But it's just something to be aware of. And the reason I mentioned that one is when you come to run reports, you'll see we've got various folders. If we go into the bank payments folder and choose the Daybook Bank Payments report, that specific report would only pick up transaction types with the type BP. So it wouldn't pick up any transactions against, say, an account that's flagged as a cash account because they would be CP. Similar for if it's a credit card and I run this report, it's not going to pick them up. That's because there are different reports for different transaction types. So that's just something to be aware of. Right, now that brings me to the end of the initial demonstration. What I do want to do, I'm going to head back to the slides very quickly. I just want to quickly mention alternatives, maybe for you to think about. So if you've got things like bank payments or bank receipts, then they're regular transactions. So let's say you always, it just an expense that, let's say it happens every month. Rather than key it in manually, you could set it up within the bank accounts as a recurring item. It means you can just go in and process that and it'll enter the transaction for you. If this type of information, such as maybe employees fill in an expenses form and they detail their expenses with the details of any payments, perhaps you could go down the data import route. So if that information is coming from other software, you could maybe think about data import. Bank feeds is very popular these days. Now, bank feeds is where you set up a connection essentially with your bank account, and via bank feeds, it will download your bank transaction information for you. So it downloads that, and on that, once you've downloaded it, you have an option to create the equivalent transaction in your Sage accounts there and then. Or if you've got a rule set up, when the transaction downloads, if your Sage account software recognizes that transaction, then it can automatically post it into your accounts for you. So you've got even less to do. So the likes of let's say you bought some diesel as an example, it's probably always going to have the same sort of description against that. You buy it from the same garage every time. So, you'll probably look at your bank statement and think, well, yeah, I can spot that a mile off. It's diesel because it's from that garage. That's the kind of thing you can set up a rule for in bank feeds and say, right, well, when you see this transaction, what I want you to do is enter it as a bank payment. I want you to enter it against this nominal code with this tax code. Save you having to key it in. So bank feeds can be a good time saver. You can set up to 300 rules. So quite a bit of scope there to save you a little bit of time here and there. So you avoid that sort of manual data entry. Now, if you've never come across it, auto entry, good little option as well. It's sort of what I would term a connected service, this one. If you've never come across it before, do check that out. It means that when you're on the go, potentially you could take a photograph of your document or have that document emailed in. And via the auto entry, it'll read that information, process that, and essentially enable you to add that to your accounts without having to key that in. If you want to find out more, if you've downloaded the handout, then those links will work. It'll take you to the appropriate videos that you require. If you are interested in bank feeds and you want to find out more, we do run both live webinars for bank feeds. We run them every month. And we also have recordings available as well. Remember, the links are included on your follow-up email. Now, there's loads of information available from our help center, not just for bank payments, for anything and everything to do with your software. So if you get a chance, check that out. If you think of any questions afterwards, can you find it within the help center? If not, remember our support team's on hand. If you've got any final questions, do take that opportunity to pop them in there now. I'll try and pick them up before we end the webinar in just a couple of minutes. Remember, the webinar has been recorded, so that link will be included on your follow-up email. You'll get that around about an hour's time. The follow-up email will include the link to the webinar pages, so both to our live timetable and our recordings page. So it's a good way to play catch up via the recordings, but do check out that live timetable. We've got loads of sessions booked in. They're all free to attend. They're all aimed at trying to help you learn more about your software. Quite a few quick learns on there as well, if you prefer the shorter sessions. So do check those out and get yourself registered if you are interested. If you can't make it, don't worry, we do add the recordings to our recordings page afterwards. Right, just while I'm waiting to see if any questions do come through, I haven't got any at the moment. Let me quickly thank you for attending. All we ask is that if you can take a minute just to complete that survey as you leave, just to let us know if we're on the right track, whether we've hit the mark, or if you've got any ideas or thoughts that you want to share with us on how we can improve the webinar or topics you'd like to see covered going forward. If you can take that minute, that'd be great. Love reading those comments. And that follow-up email will be with you in around about an hour's time. So do watch out for that. And as I say, get yourself registered. If you can't make it, don't worry. You'll just receive an email afterwards with the link to the recording. Right, we'll end the webinar at that point then, as there are no outstanding questions. Many thanks for coming along. Hope it proved useful for you. Or if maybe you already knew, quite knowledgeable on that area, but hopefully it's consolidated your knowledge a little bit if you have. Hopefully you're feeling a bit more confident. So many thanks for coming along, and hopefully I'll see you on some other webinars very, very soon. Many thanks.